So we're getting a better look of how Inauguration Day is going to be shaping up, okay? Biden's going to get installed in at 12 o'clock on Wednesday, and Trump's going to be kicking around the White House until the morning of before he takes off to Joint Base Andrews in Maryland, and yeah, has a big send-off there. We don't know if he's going to have a big send-off on the day or the days leading up to, but he also has a bunch of other business that he should probably be looking after here, like pardoning. Probably the way that the courts are being weaponized right now, should probably look at pardoning himself, his family, and Snowden and Assange, by the way, because they could be very powerful allies in the lead up to 24. When I know might be optimistic here, but I think it'll be a rehash of what we got in 2020 again. And if we have the exact same thing play out where 2016 was just kind of the playbook for 2020 and 2024 is going to be looking to steal from everything else in the past. So we're going to need somebody to be disseminating that information. And who better than Julian Assange? I can't really think of anybody. But here's how everything's going to be shaping up, okay? Trump's going to be around the White House until the morning of, and he's going to be skipping the inauguration. Things we already know, but the way that the mainstream media is trying to spin this and the turn that the New York Post has been having, because we've been using them as a source here, and you guys have probably seen the numerous times I've linked to them and used them in articles or in videos spanning from coverage of the coup to election coverage to, I don't know, just big tech, everything that we cover here. Normally like to use the New York Post, but it all depends on who's writing these articles is more important than anything else. And that's why we got a whole litany of sources to use here. So, like this moron here, in a break with White House tradition, Trump is not expected to participate in the ceremonial transfer of power and will likely skip Biden's inauguration in favor of his own custom departure from Joint Base Andrews. Trump is reportedly considering a grand send-off. I don't know if this is going to happen. This is just more speculation from the corrupt Associated Press. Prove me wrong. Which could include, see how they word this stuff? You know, oh, he might do this, he might not. He could have a big fireworks display on the 19th. I don't know. I expect he's going to have some kind of a send-off address to the nation Monday or Tuesday night. That's what I'm thinking. There's nothing formal. There's nothing laid out there, but there's going to be one last address. I don't want to guarantee it, but there's like a 90% chance it's going to happen. But the New York Post or the Associated Press, whatever hack outlet is reporting this, saying that it could include a red carpet, color guard, 21 gun salute. Of course he'd have a gun. Of course he'd have guns. He's a white supremacist after all. In a fashion reminiscent of how he was welcomed abroad. Yeah, okay, whatever. But another one of these narratives that's being spun around by the media right now. Oh, he'd be setting a dangerous precedent by not being there for the handoff of power, skipping inauguration. How unbecoming of a president. Well, guess what? It's happened 3 other times in history. And they also mentioned in that previous article that, Trump is yet to concede. And I've referenced this video a couple of times, and I'm going to link to this article here because it also tells you the 3 other presidents that didn't attend, because I'm good like that. I want you guys to have context. There's the video there, and that's the closest thing he's probably going to give to a concession speech. The rest is just going to be rah, go for 24. And I don't know about you guys, but I can't wait for the rehash of 2020 in the debate forums. 3 rounds of an 82-year-old Biden against a 78-year-old Trump. Okay, listen, I'm still very firm with my idea for term limits, okay? I think that old people, especially upper 70s, early 80s, shouldn't be in public office, okay? When you have extenuating circumstances such as these, I'll make an exception. I'd like to see Trump hand the baton over to somebody else, but at the same time, I'd like for him to be 78, leaving office instead of taking it over for another 4 years. But just think of those debates. Oh, they're going to be so glorious because in 4 more years, I don't think Trump's going to look that much different. He might have some more gray hair, but outside of that, did he age a day from the time that he put his hand on the Bible in 17 to what he looks like right now? No. Biden, I think he's just going to be there via hologram, and there'll be a big Pixar event for the debates. Here's another bold prediction. I think that Biden's going to be doing so much of his presidenting from behind the desk and not abroad like Trump was. Even post-pandemic, let's put all of that aside. Let's just say, starting 2022, all the borders are open, whatever, you got your fucking international travel open. He will not be making nearly as many travels as Trump made abroad. Oh, Biden will be accosting abroad or two, but countries have nothing to do with it. Here are the three other presidents, I should say, not just people, who declined to attend inauguration. In the chaotic aftermath of the Civil War, President Andrew Johnson declined to attend. Weird. Johnson, a Southern Democrat, became president in 1865 after Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. Republicans impeached him over the management of Reconstruction. Yeah, there was nothing sketchy about that election. His reputation in tatters. Democrats nominated Horatio Seymour instead to challenge Civil War hero Republican Ulysses S. Grant, by the way. See how they don't include that? That's weird. It's not weird at all. John Adams, somebody else who decided to exercise his vice presidential powers, or rather, president of the Senate powers, and count electoral college votes for himself, so he would become president. Weird how all of this stuff is kind of just adding up all together. Adams, the second president who followed the first peaceful transition following electoral defeat. I just gave the background on that one. Departed the White House at 4 a.m. of his successor's inauguration. According to the White House Historical Association, he had been defeated by Thomas Jefferson, who in kind returned the favor because John Adams was running against Thomas Jefferson, who got fucked out of being president for 4 short years until he came back. Well, Adams never recorded why he left. There you go. He may have wanted to avoid provoking violence between Federalist and Democratic Republicans, as the first time the presidency was transferred to an opposing party, he was almost never formally invited by Jefferson and perhaps didn't want to impose. Well, something else that John Adams did was invoke sedition laws against his opponents, so you know what? Not exactly the greatest human being. Oh, and here's just an absolute treat, and one that should ring like a stroke of deja vu for people who have been closely paying attention to the goings-on of this election. The Historical Association says Adams' son, President John Quincy Adams, who was defeated by Trump's rabble-rousing historical hero Andrew Jackson, had a frosty relationship with his successor. President-elect Andrew Jackson arrived in Washington on February 11th, 1829. He did not call on President Adams, nor did Adams invite Jackson to the White House, the association says. Later that month, President Adams moved into the mansion on Meriden Hill in Washington, D.C., and officially departed the White House on the evening of March 3rd, back when inauguration was in March, the day before the inauguration of President Jackson. Yeah, after Jackson had the presidency stolen from him, and then he had to come back with a sweeping movement called, the once a great Democratic Party, and blew that election right out of the water. So, hilarious how things tend to work out. Oh, it's hilarious how they're trying to color Trump here. All of the living presidents attended his inauguration, but don't you remember 140 House Democrats or congressional Democrats boycotted his inauguration? So cute how they like to say all the former vice presidents and presidents that were alive are still there. Weird how we never really heard anything from Jimmy Carter during this. I understand that he's in his fucking 90s at this point, but he was a part of the congressional panel on voter fraud in 2005 to inspect the 2004 election. Guess the Democrats didn't want to have to hear from that guy. Weird how that stuff works. But that's the groundwork for the inauguration. Hilarious how it was all the very hotly contested presidential elections in history that didn't just want to peacefully hand over the keys to the castle. Weird how that stuff works. So because Trump is going to break with tradition and it's going to be an unprecedented time, well, you should just ask Biden. He was probably there for the same scenario that happened to Thomas Jefferson's inauguration. They probably went to Amy's Diner afterwards. But what are they doing? Okay, I've made a couple of videos about all of the troops that are being put into Capitol Hill. For what, really? I don't know. And then they're surrounding other capitals with more National Guardsmen because reasons? Well, they kind of leaked what they're anticipating, and it doesn't make sense. U.S. capitals see few protesters after bracing for violent demonstrations. Of course. A heavy presence of law enforcement officers guarded state capitals across the United States on Sunday in preparation of protests that have so far drawn only a small number of Trump supporters, we will get to that, who believe the president's false claims that the 2020 election was rigged. Yes, it's false because you're not allowed to look at any of the information. Anyways, that's as far as I can go on that now. More than a dozen states have activated National Guard troops to help secure Capitol buildings following an FBI, oh yes, trust the FBI, warning of armed demonstrations with right-wing extremists emboldened by deadly attacks on the U.S. Capitol in Washington on January 6th. Oh, at least they're going to tell you who it is, and then we'll tell you why this is retarded. Security officials have eyed Sunday as their first major flashpoint, as that is when the anti-government Boogaloo movement made plans weeks ago to hold rallies in 50 states. Okay, so they're a far-right movement that's anti-government, but you're going to smear them as Trump supporters. That's weird. Okay, some people probably don't know what the Boogaloo movement is, and I feel childish for saying boogaloo over and over again, but because the media is the media at this point, and they're not going to tell you their true intentions, I might as well. So here are the pictures of the actual people that were at the protests. Armed protesters arrived at multiple state capitals across the country Sunday morning, following a special bulletin from the FBI last week that warned armed protesters are planned at 50 state capitals in the United States capitals in Washington, D.C. ahead of President-elect Joe Biden's inauguration on the 20th. Yes, lots of Trump supporters there, I would imagine. Well, the protesters are being identified across various platforms as members of so-called Boogaloo movement. They largely appear to be a generic anti-government anarchists, some who call themselves Liberty Boys and others who oppose the conservative Proud Boys. See, at least Zero Hedge formerly whatwoulddtylerDurdenDo.com and formerly I forget what else it was, but it's a good outlet all in all. They've been around forever. They're like the first place that I've actually seen call the Proud Boys just a conservative group, because that's what they are. Their sudden emergence surrounding the inauguration is curious, to say the least. Yes, because Trump has said in the previous press release from the White House, no violence, no anything, don't make us look stupid. Paraphrasing, of course. And I think it would just be hilarious if nobody turned out for the inauguration, because there's nothing you can do except for harm the cause at this point. A field reporter at the Daily Caller, Jorge Ventura, reports from Ohio State House, where he notes that 580 National Guardsmen in Ohio. Yes, so that should raise a red flag. Trump won that by nearly 9 points, and the only people who would be there would be to harm the cause. So, to provide security around the Ohio State House in downtown Columbus through Wednesday, Boogaloo Boys marching towards the Ohio State House in an armed protest. Yes, I would imagine that picture. And what did they have to say? "We are not a pro-Trump group," said one of the armed protesters at the Ohio demonstration. Yeah. Outside of one of the senators who made a really stupid claim at the electoral count. I can't really think of anything bad going on in Ohio, and it's going to be one of those states that's going to be passing. Well, at least they don't need it, but election reform, hopefully. Because nobody wanted to challenge anything that happened in Florida, Ohio, Iowa, any of those former swing states. Remember, they were a part of that big pact, but they had very strict laws, and they had very quick and on the evening counting complete. So that should be the model, not the anomaly. What did another armed protester in Ohio have to say? "Proud Boys do not come here." Oh, okay. That should be pretty obvious. In Michigan, a dozen or so armed protesters are now showing up at the state capitol. What did Dave Boucher have to say? Hawaiian shirts are the sign of the Boogaloo movement. I know, this is fucking retarded. They're just all LARPers, people. Just kids who want to think that there is a big story arc to this when there really isn't, okay? To make change, it's just all mundane. Okay, it's not as fantastical as, oh, the military's gonna come in, they're gonna make all these sweeping arrests. No. It's just as stupid as saying the fucking election was stolen by machines. Okay, that would be cool to prove. How about you just look at the signatures? It's a lot more procedural, a lot more dry, and the reason why long-form content like this doesn't appear on TV is because I just won't slander everything is just painted with one fucking brush. It's like, oh, they're all far right because I disagree with them, or they're all far left extremists because reasons, because we only have 90 seconds to cover a story. That's like immediately, oh, okay, yeah, you see this dude with a fucking balaclava and the assault rifle and a Hawaiian shirt on. Okay, he has a black rifle, therefore he's probably far-right extremist. Okay, fair enough. Okay, moving on to the next story, and Cindy with the weather. But no, these are people that just hate the government regardless of who's in charge, and they just want to incite another civil war. They're a bunch of morons that think that this is all going to get fantastical. And instead of doing something constructive and functional and wanting to help the system get better, I just want to see it all burned down. They're closer to what Antifa's trying to do. Their means are different and they're better trained, because look at that trigger discipline. Yeah, the Daily Mirror's Derek Momadou. Sure. tweeted, "This is very worrying, and as armed protesters gather in front of the Michigan state capitol as guardsmen are on standby." Well, they should be worried about another thing, because they're not going to have a governor for much longer. No, not because impeachment went through, but because Gretchen Whitmer took a post or is considering a post. It's very close right now. We might take a look at that. But yeah, she's nominated for a post within the DNC, a vice chair of something, which is good potentially for the people of Michigan, because no more Gretchen Whitmer. Anyways, back to this. "If you continue to oppress the American people, they will remain rational no longer." True, but threatening the state capitol might not be the best way to go about things, because the Michigan state legislature itself is overwhelmingly Republican. Just their governor on top is a complete fucking descendant of the Wicked Witch of the West. She lost the plot a year ago. But there's a bunch of state-level legislators rather, in the state of Michigan that are very much on the level. So that's another problem with just painting everybody with a big swath. It's like, oh, all of Michigan's in on it. No, there's a lot of people that want help in Michigan. They're just not allowed to, because the governor won't call an emergency session because, Biden won, don't look at the numbers. In New Hampshire, wow, yeah, a handful of armed protesters showed up outside the Capitol, while a similarly small group assembled outside the Oregon Capitol. Blue line, brown shirts, red coats, just following orders. The group in Oregon refers to themselves as Liberty Boys. Far as I can tell, okay, so blue line would be in reference to the police department, brown shirts is fairly obvious, and red coats are the English. So I just want to see the entire system burn, as far as I can tell by that sign. And if you're just masking up and and your entire ideology can fit on a fucking index card, you really need to rethink your positions. Yeah, there's a lot of fun pictures here of just a bunch of kids with big old long guns just exercising their Second Amendment right. Nobody shot anybody as far as I can tell. Armed protesters outside Texas Capitol. If there's anything that happens at the Texas Capitol, you know it's Antifa related, because there would be fucking nothing going on there. Same with Kentucky. Might walk that back a little bit, because there's a specific senator from Kentucky who's a little bit goofy, and it's not Rand Paul. But let's go back in time a little bit. Let's see if any of this pans out and any of this turns deadly, whatever. They have a very lofty bar to reach if they're going to try to approach what happened in 2017, because I remember. You guys remember? Shut up. Nobody cares. Whoever generic bald man was there. But, I remember all of the limousines that were on fire, the trash cans that were thrown through windows, a Starbucks in Washington, and, oh my gosh, across many Capitol buildings. And, of course, everybody's favorite green-coated Sky Screamer, which has been used in every fucking blank owns liberals compilation for the past 4 years. Bet you she's proud of that. Let's remember the damage that was there. Violence flared on the streets of Washington, D.C. today. Inauguration Day 2017. Amid Donald Trump's inauguration, remember when everybody in the House on the Democratic side sat out and nobody believed he was a legitimate president because Putin and the Russian government interfered in the election? Yeah, not my president. #resistance. With people smashing cars and store windows, clashing with police, and even torching a limo, leading to more than 200 peaceful arrests. The Capitol's interim police chief, Peter Newsom? Sure, I'm sure he's gone by now. Said in a Periscope video posted on Twitter earlier today, wow, Periscope, that's been a minute, were caused by one group, and it's a very, very small percentage. Oh my god, I even forgot about this. Very, very small percentage in the number of folk that came here to peacefully assemble in our city. So they've been using this rhetoric forever. God, it's fun to just go back into recent history and just see how they were laying the groundwork. And of course they won't show the fucking carnage that all of the rioters caused during this time. The very, very small percentage of people. But no, they'll show the police with water cannons, mace, just being right proper bigots. Yes, you have to scroll down halfway through the article where you see a peaceful protester hopefully severing a tendon in their ankle by trying to kick through a windshield of somebody's car. Oh, and see, they were even masking up back then. They knew what was coming. I wonder if this hashtag will make a return. I doubt it. No Trump supporters left on Twitter. Disrupted J20 coalition named after the date of the inauguration. Wow, thank you, ABC. Which promised that its participants would attempt to shut down the inauguration event, tangled with bikers for Trump. I'm sure that ended well. A group clad in leather biker gear that backs the president. Yes, bikers with soy pods trying to accost them. I'm sure that ended extremely well. Video on social media showed the two groups exchanging words and blows just before the inauguration festivities. Yeah. Oh, and later, black-clad Antifa members just decided to pick on something a little bit more their speed by throwing trash cans at Starbucks windows. I knew I remembered that correctly. Yay. And there you go. The original fiery but mostly peaceful protest with, of course, an anarchy symbol, which has now been associated with the far right, even though Antifa uses that all the time. But fire, smoke, limousines, far right, bad people, right? Oh, man. I'm gonna miss this. Get a job, said Ram, a biker for Trump member and from Philadelphia. Stop crying, snowflakes. Trump won. But then, of course, outside the International Spy Museum, protesters in Russian-style hats ridiculed Trump's praise of Russian President Vladimir Putin, marching with the sign calling Trump Putin's puppet and Kremlin employee of the month. How clever. At the inauguration ceremony, protesters could be seen removed from the crowd. Oh my gosh, because they did nothing, obviously, because we can see the destruction in 3 photos and numerous other accounts and 217 arrests. Like I said, they got a high bar to cross, but at the same time, they aren't nearly going to have the same turnout. And when it's just Trump supporters, they don't tend to engage in violence, okay? Capitol Hill was a one-off. And did they break or burn anything? No, there's just that one perfectly edited shot of the Capitol building, which I'm sure you guys have all seen at this point, where it looks like it's on fire, but that is just the media spinning it because they need a narrative. But yeah, there's also several videos out there showing people were picking up trash within the Capitol building after everybody was like, can you guys go home now? And they're like, yeah, okay. Yeah, getting plastic bags, picking up anything that was left on the floor and handing over the plastic bags. And I'm sure one person probably was like, we got everything, I'm sure it's great, showing that there were clearly white supremacists in the building. But yeah, okay, that's a one-off. And we won't point to the fact that the break-in itself started happening, 30 minutes before Trump's speech was over. And there's several Antifa members and a CNN reporter that was caught inside. We're just going to go ahead and gloss over that and say, okay, yes, Trump supporters went in there and stormed the Capitol and caused all that damage by pushing velvet ropes off to the side, not knocking them down, taking pictures, and, taking a piece of Nancy Pelosi's mail. The shock and horror. I'm sure that was probably a confirmation of a hair appointment. But yeah, that wouldn't mean that anything's going to happen on Inauguration Day, okay? So why are there so many troops there? Well, they're anticipating violence. Okay, Trump supporters aren't going to be out there. They are just going to ignore inauguration. They might check into the proceedings on the day. Based on what Joe Biden pulls for a live stream of 1,300 people, I highly doubt it. This is going to be AstroTurf to heaven and back. But why all the National Guardsmen if nobody's going to be there? If the permits haven't been filed for any protests? If protests haven't been outlawed at this point. But okay, so why all the people there? Well, it's weird, right? We have this Twitter thread, okay? Like I said before, I don't normally like to take anything off of Twitter and just report on it, but I found this a little bit interesting, and this guy has firsthand information and firsthand knowledge. Former Marine, and has firsthand knowledge of this kind of gathering of troops. So we're going to read through a couple of these posts here. Biden's transition team has revealed there is a very real fear. See, I can't even get through that crap that this is, that members of the National Guard who support President Trump might hurt Biden during the inauguration, so they've asked commanders to confiscate all ammo and magazines from the soldiers. As you can see in that picture there's no magazine loaded into that black scary rifle, and the chamber's cleared, and it's just being used as a deterrent. Effective deterrent, because you see, okay, somebody all decked out in camouflage. If you're unfamiliar with how firearms work, like most people in Congress, you wouldn't know the difference. You just see big scary gun and you freak out and leave. Or if you're like some in Congress or some on the left, you see something that big and long and black and you just stand there and get all hot and bothered. Biden's transition team asked if it would be possible to determine which soldiers voted in GOP primaries. Starts with the military, then it runs downhill. Or who have contributed to GOP candidates so commanders could station them away from the president-elect. Nothing like being paranoid in the military. The request was refused, fueling their fear of attack. And then it says here, when I was in the Marines, we were called to the LA riots. We couldn't carry ammo, and we had empty M16A2s, yes, and our Humvees. Standard issue military rifles, M16s. Biden fears started with his Secret Service detail. He had every agent on the White House detailed demoted as he worried about their loyalty to Trump. Just what we need, a 78-year-old paranoid installee. terrific. The history with paranoid leaders is not exactly a bright one. A certain man with a mustache comes to mind. Not the obvious one, the left version of him. And I guess that one as well, towards the end. Democrats think that anyone who supports Trump is a very real threat. We're seeing that in real time with the digital reign of terror. Even Speaker Nancy Pelosi is fomenting fear by falsely claiming Republican Congress members are planning to bring guns to the inauguration to intimidate and threaten the president-elect. Oh, see, you can kind of believe that because Lauren Boebert, from the freshman from Colorado, the one who bitched out Beta in real time. She wants to carry her gun into the house because she's an American citizen and has a Second Amendment right. But because when you're 80 fucking years old, I guess you're scared about everything. And in the final post, the Army has confirmed they've acquiesced to Biden's demand for security screening for National Guardsmen who support President Trump. It starts there, okay? That's the slippery slope. You think it's going to end with the National Guardsmen who support President Trump? It'll run down every single branch of government, okay? You just wait. Depends on how long those impeachment proceedings are going to take to go through the Senate. If they're going to wait 100 days in order to kind of distance themselves from Trump and then just go back and think, oh boy, that sure was a tumultuous time. We probably should make sure he can't run again in 2024. Okay, and then we'll get back to Cory Bush's House amendment to expel anybody who was supporting the contestation of the Electoral College vote. Because you know what? A, they could be supporters, and you know what? People who are sympathetic to that cause, you guys remember Capitol Hill. We don't want to foment that sort of reaction ever again, so we should probably just take affirmative action on that one, because you wouldn't want to be supporting white supremacy now, could you? The logic will continue to get fucking batshit crazy. Just as crazy as the look as Nancy Pelosi has on her face right there. She forgot that she ordered the fist attachment for her chair. So yeah, the inauguration day, 3 days time, boo. Wednesday, 12 o'clock noon, Washington time. We know what to expect, sort of, I guess, from Trump in the couple of days left. Democrats have a high bar to clear if they want to beat the previous high score of 217 arrests on the day, and who the fuck knows what all the National Guards are doing there, but no, they can't really do anything because all the live ammo's been confiscated. But yeah, that's what's to expect over the next couple of days. It should get a little bit weirder, and I expect a few more victims of the digital guillotine via the digital reign of terror that the left is enacting right now. What we're going through right now sure has a lot of hallmarks of the French Revolution right now. And that's something that a lot of YouTube pundits out there have kind of failed to emphasize right now. I don't know what emphasize is that in doing some research over history and reading some historical text, all of this stuff is nothing new, okay? You go through a little dip in your republic's history, if it's European, Asiatic, or even some American history, what have you, but it all eventually works itself out. Yeah, it could either be years and could be decades. It could almost be 100 years like over in Russia, but the spirit of humanity always seems to kind of overcome. So don't get too far down. There's good people out there doing good work, even if you don't want to. But I thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.